I have revealed to you that the requirement to pay back the CERB is a fraud. In my previous free video presentation, CERB overpayment is a fraud. Now I'm going to reveal to you the relation between CERB overpayment and student loan fraud. It is not from the government, but from the corrupt former government officials who used to work at the Department of Human Resources and Social Development, Canada. These corrupt officials were ousted in 2015 when Justin Trudeau rebranded the Department of Human Resources and Social Development, Canada to become the Department of Family, Children and Social Development, Canada. These corrupt officials then moved to Service Canada as contractors. Mind you, Service Canada works in the structure of customer service. You may have a Service Canada office in the city or town near you, but they do not serve you. Their job is taking information from you, and someone else from Timbuktu will reply to you. When these corrupt officials moved to Service Canada, they took with them the external hard drive from the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada, or former Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada. The external hard drive contains the information or the data of 650,000 students whose identities they used to take student loan fraudulently. For decades, they have been the accomplices of the student loan fraud engineered by the bank officials. CIBC is the most. They use the fraudulent loan submitted by the bank officials to take a direct loan. Then, joining the CRA Corporation, they hire the Ottawa Technology Center to be their customer service. But first, they created Employment and Social Development Canada, a phantom organization, an organization that does not exist, but in name only. You know that people created a phantom organization or a phantom entity for what purpose but to fraud people. This makes the Department of Family, Children and Social Development Canada to be farther or higher in structure than before Service Canada was created. Before the creation of Service Canada, you deal directly with the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada. After the creation of Service Canada, you do not deal with the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada, or after 2015, after Justin Trudeau rebranded the department to become the Department of Family, Children and Social Development Canada, you go to Service Canada. After these corrupt officials move to Service Canada, you have to go through the Ottawa Technology Center if you want to deal with the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada, or later the Department of Family, Children and Social Development Canada first. If you try going to the department, they send you to Service Canada. Like a customer service, you go around the circle. The irony is that the customer service is like an army of everything, an army of jack of all trades. This army work using a cellular telephone or a BlackBerry. Once you deal with the customer service, it is like you hit a dead end. This is one of the purposes of using the customer service, which is to force you to comply to all unethical things the customer service agents demand from you. They are not problem solvers. They were trained to cause the problems, and while you are busy entertained by the radical and unethical customer service agents, whose job is to fight with you, to lie and constantly rob you and deny unceasingly. Like the phrase says, the dog may bark, but the carriage must go on. They can work with the bank manager to steal your money or have the CRA corporation to steal your tax refunds and federal and provincial benefits. You keep talking with a customer service who has been trained to manipulate, deceive, and lie or deny constantly. They rob you first and then lie and deny constantly. Don't forget, we have two CRAs, the Public Office CRA and a Private Office CRA, created by Stephen Harper in 2007 to create his kingdom so that he could govern without the government. But first, take over the logistics. All the collection letters or notice of debts for CERB repayment or overpayment were or still are sent by the Ottawa Technology Center, the customer service of the CRA Corporation and Service Canada. These corrupt former government officials who moved to Service Canada then quickly, as I mentioned, created a phantom organization called Employment and Social Development Canada, which I have mentioned as well, was created not long after they moved out from the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada to Service Canada. This name is similar to the name of one of the departments within the Department of Family, Children and Social Development Canada. There are three departments in this department. And one of them is Department of Employment, Workforce Development and Disability Inclusion. It's not quite the same, but the employment is and the development is. The intention is to fool you because they know you do not know about the government. They're using the government's name to fraud you. You receive this notice of debt or the requirement to pay back the CERB even though you did not apply because you are one of the students or former students whose identities they use to take student loan or take the loan under direct financing fraudulently. The politicians also do not know about the government but enter the political stage to take over what the public has and give them to their political cronies and to pursue their own interests and ambitions. They don't even know about Employment and Social Development Canada, a phantom organization or a phantom department, a phantom entity that exists in name only. It is called a department in January 2020, a department of the deep state, a private version of government. Prime Minister Stephen Harper created the CRA Corporation and Service Canada to create a private version of government at government expenses. His famous expression is to govern without the government, to govern his kingdom at the expense of the government established by the people and for the people. The law prohibits two entities of the same name. The CRA did not confront Harper when he created the CRA Corporation because they are no longer trained either. The CRA also utilizes the most contract staffs among the departments and agencies. There are also many foreigners and they work in the government without security clearance because Harper erased such requirement. The CRA employees do not know about this law. The punishment for such establishment is an imprisonment. After the CRA allowed the creation of the CRA Corporation, it is becoming a victim of its own policy and law. Why? Those who allowed this creation were those who came to work in the government through the political party as well. One of the impacts of having two entities with the same name is white-collar crimes, including fraud. It was the practice of the private enterprises in the early 1980s. The new entity used the name of the old one to fraud the citizens, especially the old firm's customers, the customers of the old firm. It was banned and punishable for those who do it. The CRA Corporation uses the customer service, the Ottawa Technology Center, and trains them to deceive, manipulate, rob, or fraud, and lie or deny constantly. You just go around the circle and they don't care about you. They work with a cellular telephone or a BlackBerry. After creating the CRA Corporation, Harper also created Service Canada under a scheme of outsourcing, and both started managing the nation's logistics. Sadly, for every dollar the government gives you, they will take back a portion of it and they send it to their offshore accounts. Worse, however, they send the money to their offshore accounts using your accounts and your social insurance number online accounts, which they created for the purpose of sending money to their offshore accounts without you knowing it. As I said, they turn your social insurance number into bank accounts that you do not have access to it. It is the reason that they persistently demanding that you should sign up for a direct deposit. It is easy to transfer the money from one account to another and even to offshore accounts using other people's identities. No one can touch you, right? There's also no paper trail. Harper created the CRA Corporation and Service Canada to fulfill his intention, to govern without the government. He created these two organizations to take over the public service, and he would be the king, rule his kingdom at government expenses or at taxpayers' expenses. He did not serve the citizens or the taxpayers. He created a deep state, an open government, or Canada's version of the U.S. deep state. In a plain language, we have two governments, one that is established from the people, by the people, and for the people, and one that is established by the politician and for the cronies at your expenses. Now you understand that you received this notice of debt because your identity was used by these corrupt former government officials at the federal level, the corrupt former government officials at the provincial government, and the bank officials who engineered the fraud from the year the bank started negotiating or lobbying the government to privatize the student loan. And they started using your identity from the year you started your college or university. Majority of the students are from CIBC or students who had an account at CIBC because you have been instructed to take your loan document to CIBC in the early 1990s while the provincial government turns the department into Ministry of Training, College, and University with a PO Box number. Then they also create the National Student Loan Service Center. Before this transition, you have a Department of Training, College, and University with a civic address. Then when you started taking your bank or your loan authorization form to the bank, they use or you're given a PO Box number under the Ministry of Training, College, and University. Once the student loan was officially privatized in 1999, CIBC requested that you have your parents or guardians to co-sign student loan agreements, which is made between you and CIBC. Then they make out another agreement using your signature, copy and paste, with fraudulent clauses that you never know or read. and submit it to the government for the money. Yes, you have been victimized. Every former student whose identity was used by these corrupt former government officials received this notice of death, although they did not apply for the CERB. Many don't apply for the CERB. So this is a copy of the second notice of death sent to me by the Ottawa Technology Center. I received two notice of deaths, but they put the sender, Employment and Social Development Canada, an organization that does not exist. People created a phantom organization or a phantom company for the purpose of nothing but to fraud people. Ironically, people believe in phantom organizations because the police units are not properly trained, or they are not trained in white-collar crimes, so they cannot inform the public about white-collar crimes. The RCMP, for example, was trained by Anastasia Tucson, an agent of the Ottawa Technology Center, but claims she is an official at Employment and Social Development Canada, an organization that does not exist, a phantom organization. How in the world she is able to secure a position as the RCMP trainer? How in the world a person whose job is to send illegal or fraudulent collection statement, fraudulent collection letters to the students, harass the students, force the student to pay the fraudsters, and a person whose daily job is to deceive, manipulate, rob, or fraud, then lie and deny constantly, has been able to get a job as the RCMP training coordinator. This means that you can work at the RCMP without a security clearance. Yes, you don't need to go through a security clearance to work at the RCMP or Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Now ask yourself, how in the world a person who works at Employment and Social Development Canada, an organization that does not exist, an organization that only exists on paper but not physically, is able to secure a position as the police trainer? The police were trained by a fraudster. The provincial police do not even know about the student loan process and the changes in the student loan program, as well as the changes within the departments that institute and manage the student loan program and student loan repayment program. So they were also trained as customer service. The first notice of death, which I ignored, requires that I should send the money to Tammy McGarry at P.O. Box 6767, and this one requires that I should send the money to Pacific at P.O. Box 1133, which belongs to Muriel Bullerish. Pacific is registered or is posted at the Canada.ca website, which is the website of the Canadian version of Deep State, a government created illegally and unconstitutionally. But both also require that I can also choose to make an agreement or payment arrangement with the customer service, the Ottawa Technology Center. But when you call them, their automated voicemail always says Canada Revenue Agency collection line. The payment, they want the payment is to the Receiver General for Canada. How many Receiver General for Canada do we have? This is another red flag for you. If the CERB comes from the government, the repayment should go back to the public treasury. In this case, you make an arrangement with a customer service, a private company, and send the payment by mail to Tammy McGarry or Muriel Bullerish, but the payee is the Receiver General for Canada. Does it make sense? No, but that is how the white-collar crimes do. Check the P.O. Box number. There may be P.O. Box 2244 and there's another P.O. Box. All are in Matane, Quebec. Both notice of debts that I received required me to pay $2,000, $1,000 to Tammy and $1,000 to Muriel, which they sent through the email. So this explains the email I received from Service Canada, and the person wants $2,000. You also receive the same email either from Service Canada or the CRA Corporation, but the one that sent you is the Ottawa Technology Center. In my case, $1,000 for each. To the others, they may require $4,000, $1,000 for each of the 4 corrupt government officials at Service Canada. What a bunch of fraudsters. What a bunch of crooked people. Yes, this is a fraud. You are being fraud. Different from the first notice of debt, this second notice of debt reveals that they sent my 2021 tax refund to Muriel Bullerish at P.O. Box 1133, Matane, Quebec. From 2013, when the government took over the student loan repayment program and wrote off all the outstanding student loan for all the students, my loan has been $0 as of July 2009. These corrupt former government officials have stolen all my tax refunds and federal and provincial benefits. They have stolen all the students' tax refunds and federal and provincial benefits from 2013 until today for 9 years. They do the same to all the students for 9 years. You deserve justice. Yes, you deserve justice. Ask yourself, if you receive the CERB from the government, and if the government did ask you to repay, the money goes back to the public treasury. It should go to the government, not to Tammy Migeri or Muriel Bullerish or Atik Rahman or Anik Dupont. Do you realize that there are different government checks? The CERB or all government checks. One is processed for the public servants and those working in the government circle, including the bureaucratic circle, with the check signed by the Receiver General of Canada and the Deputy Receiver General of Canada, with a civic address from Gatineau, Ottawa, the address of the Office of the Receiver General of Canada. The second one is issued by the CRA Corporation, the private CRA that is certified by you, the taxpayers, whom these corrupt former government officials defraud for decades. I mean, these former government officials, corrupt government officials, defraud you, the taxpayers, because they use the students' identities to take student loans fraudulently. Now, this one is signed by the Receiver General for Canada and the Deputy Receiver General for Canada, with an address P.O. Box 5000, Matane, Quebec. But the signature are those of the Receiver General and Deputy Receiver General of Canada. It is deceitful. It is illegal. The positions and person, Receiver General for Canada and Deputy Receiver General for Canada, are phantom names and phantom positions. They don't exist. If the CERB check comes from Service Canada under the Employment Insurance Program, it is signed by the chairperson and vice chairperson. On the back, it says for the Receiver General for Canada, with an address P.O. Box 2000, Matane, Quebec. The second or the vice chairperson is anybody. Anybody can sign it. But the first, the chairperson, is the Director of Operation of the Employment and Social Development Canada. This means that as a phantom department, they are starting to set up their people to form a deep state, a fake government. Service Canada is introducing and marketing this phantom department as a product placement for their deep state or open government in all the CPP and all age security checks. Without you knowing, you are helping in the acceptance of a department that does not have an office, does not have any address, does not have a physical statue, and purely does not exist. You are slowly accepting, and the media help you as well to accept the existence of a deep state, a private version of government established by the politicians illegally and unconstitutionally. All your checks from Service Canada as of 2015 is written at the back ESDC. There's no such thing. It is deceitful, it is illegal, it is unconstitutional. This is the back side of the notice of debt. Read it carefully. Let me read it for you. The first paragraph. The Canada Revenue Agency, CRA, in brackets, collects debts on behalf of Employment and Social Development Canada, ESDC, in brackets. CRA is authorized to withhold income tax refunds or goods and services tax credits to recover defaulted Canada student loans, employment insurance overpayments, as well as other types of debts to the Government of Canada or to a provincial territorial government. This statement makes me laugh. This is supposed to be about CERB. Why there is a student loan? This is the backside of the statement of account about the student loan, and they just add the employment insurance overpayments. White-collar crimes are very subtle. They make you think this is the Government of Canada while the money goes to individual names Temi Migeri, Mira Bulleridge, Ranik Dupont, Atik Rahman, Leslie Wilson from the province, and Chris Cummings, the bank official in my case. They are also looking for your banking information. Who authorizes the CRA Corporation? Never use the corporation. None other than these corrupt former government officials. Yes, this paragraph tells you that you received this notice of debt, a requirement to pay back the CERB to the corrupt former government officials, because you are one of the students or former students whose identities they use to take student loan fraudulently. They are also looking for your banking information. I just mentioned that. Once you pay, they got your banking information and will make a direct withdrawal without your knowledge and consent. However, it is not only Temi who will withdraw your money, but also Muriel, Anik, Atik, and the customer service agents. Everything is done electronically. Never and stop using electronic payment. Use your cash. Change your bank account or move to the other bank. Never go to CIBC or never use CIBC, and never agree to their constant requests for direct deposit. The government never uses direct deposit unless the person has never been trained properly. The law requires the government to pay you by a check, not a direct payment. The law also requires the government to request payment from you by a check, not a direct withdrawal. They will also make a constant withdrawal until the amount they owe is paid up. The government may require these corrupt officials to pay back the loan, but instead of paying back, they chase you. They use the customer service, the Ottawa Technology Center, to chase you for years from 2013 until today. They are committing a crime, an identity theft, and a fraud. Yes, they are defrauding you. They are defrauding me for 9 years and commit identity theft, use my identity to defraud the government, the taxpayers, for 22 years. That is how long I study in Canada. Do you know that under the Consumer Protection Act, the lender cannot and should not force you to pay, but it has to be under voluntary payment? It is illegal for the collection agency to keep chasing after you for the money. This act also states that you can only try to make a collection for 2 years. Now these corrupt former government officials have used the CRA to take your tax refunds, federal and provincial benefits for 9 years. It is illegal. Why the Ottawa Technology Center keeps sending you the fraudulent collection statement? The customer service is a machine. They are programmed by these people, the corrupt former government officials. They come from the political parties and believe they are above the law. However, they are cowardly and immoral. They don't want to face with you. Rather, they use the customer service and the technology system to harass you and steal from you constantly. It indicates that morality-wise, they don't have any. Yes, they are people without morale. I will be embarrassed if people know about my crime. Rather, these corrupt people, the bank officials and former government officials, corrupt former government officials, keep chasing me, keep chasing you because they have no morale, and character-wise, they are, should I say, scumbags. This is the latest collection statement sent by the Ottawa Technology Center in 2019 on behalf of the corrupt former government officials to me. The bank official engineered the fraud of the student loan, while the political staffs at the provincial government and these corrupt former government officials at the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada are his accomplices. These people are the accomplices of the bank officials. The Ottawa Technology Center stopped sending me the statement of account once I told them that the CRA, which is a CRA corporation, does not have legal authority to collect student loan. I also told them that the Employment and Social Development Canada does not exist but represent the people from Service Canada, and Service Canada does not have legal authority to collect student loan either. It is illegal. They were really surprised. They were hired to make illegal collection and to fraud the students. So when I tried to call them again, they always said, if it is about the student loan, call Service Canada directly. This statement of account requires that I should send my payment to Tammy McGarry at P.O. Box 6767, Matane, Quebec. But on the back it says that the check is made payable to the Receiver General for Canada. How could it be possible? Your check is for a phantom individual with a phantom position, but the money is for Tammy McGarry. No students pay their student loan to any individual, and to an individual that does not exist either. I want you to notice that in this fraudulent statement of account, my social insurance number is a client ID and also serves as internal transfer. If I send a payment to the phantom person with a phantom position, the Receiver General for Canada, once they receive my payment, they will just transfer the money to Tammy McGarry using my social insurance number as the account number. My social insurance number has been created as an online account in 2009, which I do not have access to. At CIBC, my former bank, whose official used my identity and took student loan fraudulently, turned my sins or used my social insurance number as client ID, an online account which I cannot access. I noticed that my social insurance number was created as an online account in 2009. I saw the movement of money in this account when I was still with CIBC until I was no longer able to access my money because the bank manager has cleaned up our bank account and gave half to the CRA Corporation customer service agent, or who goes by the name Mr. Ardefera, but his real name is Michael Scolfer, and the other half of the money was posted to my husband's HST online account, which does not have access either. In fact, my social insurance number online account, which I could not access, is attached to two offshore accounts. We are no longer with CIBC for more than 4 years now, but our bank account is still open. The bank does not want to close it because it is attached to the offshore accounts. My social insurance number online bank account has been used as a drop box for money laundering. If you are the students whose identities are used by the bank officials to take student loan fraudulently, with the help of their accomplices, your social insurance numbers have also become online accounts and attached to offshore accounts. Like my social insurance number online account, they represent a drop box for money laundering. They make illegal collection directly from you, from your tax refunds and federal and provincial benefits, and then they will be transferred to these corrupt officials' offshore accounts through your social insurance number online accounts. From 2006, banks are no longer part of the student loan program because the government took over the program. However, CIBC still does. It keeps asking the student who take the student loan to have their parents or guardians to co-sign the student loan agreement. They created their own loan authorization forms using the students' identities and submitted it to the government for the money with the help of their accomplices in the government. The students do not go through the bank, but directly to the college or university where they are going to study. Rather than call it student loan, CIBC calls it student line of credits, while what they do is, as usual, use the students' identities and take student loan fraudulently. When they write the students or call the students, they always declare Canada Revenue Agency, meaning the CRA Corporation. Never use the corporation. But the CRA does not have legal authority to collect student loan or any other loan. It is illegal. Employment and Social Development Canada does not exist. It is a name on paper only, no physical building, no civic address, created by the bunch of corrupt former government officials from the former Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada, who used your identity to take student loan fraudulently. They want to keep defrauding you. It is the characteristic of a white-collar crime. Once they manage to get the money from you, you become their perpetual victims. Once you paid off your loan, another one comes up and demands you to pay up for the student loan. Some people may say double dipping, but it is actually you are a victim of identity theft and fraud. Every person in the scheme wants to have the same money, the same amount of money the other has received. Tammy wants $60,000 from me. Muriel wants $59,000 from me. Anik and Atik also wants $59,000. They'll come after I paid up Muriel. They want the same amount of money. It goes around the circle. You have become their perpetual victims. I have become their perpetual victim. The fraudulent student loan was engineered by the bank officials. Most are the CIBC, and these people, these corrupt former government officials, are the accomplices. Other accomplices are at the provincial government, who are also no longer in the government. The person is the manager of the Ontario Credit Collection and often uses the name Ontario Ministry of Finance when she has the customer service agents to call you and demand the repayment of the student loan. These corrupt officials use the corporation, never use the corporation, to chase you and steal all your tax refunds and federal and provincial benefits until today. 9 years as of today, from 2013, the year when the government took over the student loan repayment program. Most students, the 650,000 students, started receiving this fraudulent collection statement in 2015, the year when these corrupt government officials were kicked out of the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada. They moved to Service Canada. The 650,000 students whose identities they used to take student loan fraudulently started receiving aggressive telephone calls, harassment calls, and collection statements. My son is one of the victims as well. I remember he screamed at these people. None of the agents spoke the same language. Each letter, each telephone call, the telephone number, the address, the sender, and the amount required from him are all different. He received from National Student Loan Service Center, Canada Revenue Agency, Employment and Social Development Canada, and just everything is different. I took all those letters and read each one of them. After reading them, I told him to ignore them all. They all are fraud. I keep reminding him, ignore them all. They are fraud. If any letter to you from the CRA or Employment and Social Development Canada, give it to me. They are all fraud, and I will collect them as a proof of fraud. If they call you, give them my telephone number and tell them to call me. I will represent you. Then I started my investigation. To my surprise, I am actually one of the student loan fraud victims as well. I began receiving the constant collection letter or statement of account and telephone calls from myriads of them. Canada Revenue Agency, Total Credit Recovery, National Student Loan Service Center, OSAP, Employment and Social Development Canada, Ontario Ministry of Finance, and there's another one, MedCredit. That's very intense. I did my investigation on my own because the police can and don't know how to investigate white-collar crime. They are untrained. For once, RCMP, I have mentioned, was and maybe still are trained by a customer service agent of the Ottawa Technology Center, but claims he is an official of Employment and Social Development Canada. They were trained by a person who made all these illegal collection, all these illegal harassment telephone calls, and a person who forces the students, who forced me to pay all these fraudsters, the corrupt former government officials and the bank officials who engineered the fraud. They were trained by fraudsters. However, since 2013, all the tax refunds and federal and provincial benefits of all these innocent students, including my son and myself, have been taken and given to these corrupt former government officials and those who engineer the fraud. Do you know why Stephen Harper created the CRA Corporation other than the intention to take over the public service? Harper was supported by 6 political aides as his advisors, who were 20 years his junior. They were younger than him, a lot younger, half his age. That means that Harper was the king, and he ordered not receiving advice from young people. Besides, these young people are advisory member or advisory group. There are about 6 of them, and most come from the banking industry. In the early 2000s, many students defaulted on their student loan. They don't understand why their student loans seem to be double, triple, or quadruple. They did not know that the bank officials had engineered to use their identities to take student loans, and with the help of these corrupt government officials at the federal and provincial levels, more or most other officials from CABC have managed to get the money. The corrupt officials also take the student loan under the scheme Direct Financing Student Loan CSL4. This means that they are defrauding the taxpayers using your identities. It is identity theft. Take a look at this statement. It says Direct Financing Student Loan CSL4. No students ever take such a loan. It does not exist even from the 1990s, the year when CIB started negotiating privatizing student loan. There's no such a loan that student had. This name is made for these corrupt officials to defraud the taxpayers, to defraud the government. One of the corrupt officials has a position as a policy program. Hence comes about this term, Direct Financing Student Loan CSL4. There are only 2 kinds of student loans when the bank officials from CIBC started lobbying for the privatization of student loan. They were the federal student loan and provincial student loan. The privatization was official in 1999, but the students had been instructed to take their loan document to the bank in 1990s, the year they were started lobbying. Knowing that the bank officials used the students' identities to take student loan fraudulently, in 2001, the government merged the 2 programs into Canada Integrated Student Loan. You have only one loan since 2001. You were transferred automatically to this new system. Only one student loan, Canada Integrated Student Loan. Unable to get the loan through this new program, CIBC lobbied the provincial government that allowed them to keep taking the loan without paying because the students were still studying. So they take 2 provincial loans with the money from the taxpayers taken fraudulently. Using the students' identities, they were able to expand their banking services. They opened banking kiosks after lobbying the provincial government. So now they took 2 provincial loans, while the corrupt officials at the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada kept taking the Direct Financing Loan or Student Loan CSL4. The government knows about this as well, and the situation of the student being slapped with such a huge debt while they actually have a small debt. It was the reason thousands of students defaulted on their loan. In 2006, the government took over the student loan program and gave it back to college or university where the students are going to study, just as before the privatization. As of this year as well, the banks have no longer involved in the student loan program. The students don't have to take their loan document to the bank anymore. They apply directly to the college or university where they're going to study. The National Student Loan Service Center became obsolete and simply to finish the administration for the transition. No more National Student Loan Service Center. All student loan documents are online and only the students can access them through the college or university portal where they are going to study. Just as they are with the collection statement and the theft of the students' tax refunds, federal and provincial benefits, until today, these corrupt officials keep following the students, and the bank officials had a version of their own loan document or make their own form of student loan authorization form that put the National Student Loan Service Center as the center of the loan, not the college or the university. So they keep taking the student loan fraudulently using the student's identity. Understanding the condition of the student, the government came up with two different programs to help the students: debt reduction program, and the next one later on is repayment assistance program. I mentioned in my previous video repayment agreement program, but it is actually repayment assistance program. If the students are unable to secure a permanent employment to support their livelihood and be able to pay for their loan, they can apply for support through this program to the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada, or later the Department of Family, Children and Social Development Canada. I applied for the first one, the debt reduction program. With the scholarship I received, my loan was paid up in July 2009. I have the proof for that, which I obtained during my investigation. I did receive a confirmation by phone back then, but not a written letter, because the staff knew the bank official was still using my identity to take student loan fraudulently, which they were rewarded as well. Although I never took any loan after 2003, the bank official kept taking a loan, and so were the corrupt former government officials. The bank official apparently paid for the loan while I was taking my graduate study. Then came the government program of repayment assistance program. These corrupt bank officials and corrupt former government officials then applied for repayment assistance program, still and again using the students' identities. Knowing this fact, Justin Trudeau then removed these corrupt officials. However, they moved to Service Canada and started chasing after the students using the Ottawa Technology Centre and the name Employment and Social Development Canada that they created for the purpose of continuously defrauding the students and people, not only the students but other people as well. Why Stephen Harper created the CRA Corporation while the law prohibits the creation of an entity with the same name of an existing entity? As I mentioned, Harper had another 6 advisors from the banking industry besides his 6 young advisors. These advisors from the banking industry were the one who proposed to Harper to create the CRA Corporation that allows the bank officials to take, or should I say steal, the students' tax refunds and federal and provincial benefits. This step was started in 2013 when the government took over the student loan repayment program, which came about the repayment assistance program later in the same year. As the government took over the student loan repayment program, the students, as in the past, must sign an agreement with the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada, or later in 2015 with the Department of Family, Children and Social Development Canada to repay their loan. They do not pay their loan at the bank or to Mary, Tammy or Muriel, but the government through an agreement. They pay the government. They have to sign an agreement with the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada, or later the Department of Family, Children and Social Development Canada. The bank officials applied for this program, and hence the corrupt government officials were then ousted from the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada, and they moved to Service Canada as contractors. It has been their habit to fraud using the students' identities and be free because people think they're the government. They become millionaires. The politicians even support their illegal actions. That gives them the desire to keep chasing after the innocent students and steal or stealing their tax refunds and federal and provincial benefits using the CRA corporation, or they just use the CRA. Therefore, you see, as you see on in the back of the statement, it says the Canada Revenue Agency, CRA in brackets, collects debts on behalf of Employment and Social Development Canada, ESDC in brackets. Go and read your student loan agreement paper. There is none of such Employment and Social Development Canada in your agreement paper. The CRA by law does not have legal authority to collect student loans. Service Canada does not have the legal authority to collect student loan either, let alone the phantom organization Employment and Social Development Canada. I said this to the Ottawa Technology Center agents who kept calling me about the student loan, that the CRA has nothing to do with the student loan. It has no legal authority to collect student loan. They were very, very surprised that they were hired to commit a fraud. Since 2016, that almost majority people are served by the CRA Corporation. They also started sending their checks in 2015. That is why there are three different or so-called government checks: the government of the public and the open government, or the deep state. The very sad situation is that politicians are the head of both. Like the Minister of National Revenue is the head honcho of the CRA, the public office, and the CRA Corporation, a private firm. But many people believe in the fraudulent collection letter of the student loan and the notice of debt. Many students believe that Employment and Social Development Canada is the government, but this organization does not exist. So the students pay double, triple, or quadruple on their student loan. They don't know it. They also do not know that they pay quadruple for the notice of debt. Duclos supported the suggestion of Employment and Social Development Canada, which is actually the suggestion of these corrupt former government officials from Service Canada, to claw back your pensions and disability, because he does not know that the Employment and Social Development Canada is a phantom organization. It does not exist. He helped these corrupt former government officials to become wealthier, and they send their wealth to their offshore accounts using your identities. The same corrupt government officials are also the ones who proposed Justin Trudeau to have the We Charity to manage the 95 million student grant program. They will use the students' identities and take the grant as well. Then, using the students' identities again, they send the money to their offshore accounts. With the government taking over the student loan, the bank has no longer involved in the student loan. However, CIBC still does and still use the students' identities. They have the students who have their parents or guardians to co-sign the loan authorization form, which I have mentioned, and they have Davis and Henderson to make it for them. So to falsify the documents, create fraudulent documents, and keeps taking student loan fraudulently using the students' identities, and they call it student credit lines. They always ask the parents or the guardians to co-sign the student loan agreement, even though the student made an agreement with the Department of Human Resources and Social Development Canada, or the Department of Family, Children and Social Development Canada, directly online. After having the parents or guardians to co-sign the loan, they changed the form and submitted it to the government, and they received the money because they have accomplices in the government. You know that Service Canada has received the go to process passport. It is no longer the immigration and citizenship. I will not have a passport processed by Service Canada. If 4 years these corrupt former government officials were able to use the hundreds of thousands of students' identities to take student loans fraudulently, what makes you think that they will process you a password without a cost? They will create double, triple, quadruple, or quintuple of you. It is about the money. If any of you cause a problem or if they commit a crime, you will be the one they come after. Do you remember the movie Minority Report? Mayo Clinics wants to collect the data from the global society that they can predict your health. So if they predict that you will have cancer, they come and get you and force you to take the cancer vaccine, even though it is not you but your clone. If they predict that you're going to commit a crime, they come and put you in isolation, even though it is not you but your clone. If they predict that you will have COVID, they will come and put you in an internment or camps or quarantine camp. Service Canada is branching out as an open government or a deep state. They're growing. You know that when you have a deep state, the government allocates the funding to pursue the interests and ambition of the deep state, the crony enterprise, at your expenses. Reduce it from you and give it to the deep state. If you look at the state of the world today, the US and the Canadian governments are actually supporting the deep state, pursuing what the deep state was pursuing in the early 1800s. This was the era of seeking colony and extensive war and the massive use of bioweapons, drugs, and soldiers. The law was almost to no effect, while the mean of trade was a barter or a token. Bitcoins are showing the declining of people's understanding of and the knowledge of the means of trade, the sovereignty, and the Constitution. Bitcoins are actually illegal money. You cannot do anything with it but trade between Bitcoin's owners. Once you cash it, you defraud the banks. The reserve banks protect the banks when they are defrauded. It is a private bank that manages public financial assets. When they bail out the banks, they run out of cash. So they want to use digital ID. Through digital ID, they can take back the money they give to sustain the bank and prevent them from going bankrupt. Ignore all communication about student loan or notice of debt or any communication from the Employment and Social Development Canada. It does not exist. It is a ghost organization, an organization on paper only, but without a physical building and without a civic address. It is an organization created for the purpose of fraud, but is being used as a department in a deep state. And all people are working, all the people from this department, this fake department, are working at Service Canada. This is a fraud. This is deceitful and a fraud. What they keep doing is having the CRA Corporation keep stealing your tax refunds and federal and provincial benefits, which they have done since 2013, the year the government took over the student loan repayment program, and within the same year, the government wrote off all the outstanding student loan. But guess what? These corrupt people keep telling you that the government did not write off the student loan. They even posted it on the Canada.ca, the virtual side of the open government or the deep state. It is a fake government. When you graduated in 2013, up to October 2013, your student loan balance is $0.00. Get the proof from the National Archive and prove it to the judge and the lawyers and whoever. What these people do to you is a crime, a white-collar crime. Every person who they victimize has their social insurance number as an online bank account, which they do not have access to it. Your social insurance number is being used not only as an online account for financial crime activities, but also for money laundering. Write to the CRA in your jurisdiction and the politicians, especially the head Minister of National Revenue. The higher is the number of you writing her and the CRA, the more likely these people will be put in jail for defrauding the taxpayers, defrauding the government, and defrauding you for years. Identity theft. They steal your identities and use it for fraudulent purpose. Yes, the jail is their place for life. Purchase and read Canada's White-Collar Crimes, Political, Financial, and Corporate Crimes. Order it online at the Amazon sites. You will have a better understanding of what they are doing to you, what they have done to you, and how. Read the introduction at carolinekoval.com. Purchase at the Amazon websites. You deserve justice. We deserve justice. For decades, they defraud the government. They defraud the taxpayers. They defraud you and I directly. They have robbed us for 9 years already. This must be stopped. It must end here and today. The next I will be talking about your social insurance number and digital ID. Electronic convenience leads you to a total enslavement of humanity. Get out of it.